morning right here in Nairobi. Thank you so much for always keeping it TV47. My name is Linda Alela, and it is time for Morning Cafe, that program that kickstarts your day on a very good note. We update you on what is happening in the world of news, as we also have candid discussions about issues that affect us directly or indirectly. Welcome once again. Always a pleasure to have you joining us and interacting with us. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela at TV47KE on Twitter. Let's get to hear what you have to say about the stories that we'll be looking at, and importantly, the discussions that we'll be having this morning. The stalemate on matters of revenue sharing at the levels of the county continues, and that's exactly what we'll be delving deep into, or the current affairs. Just get to understand what way forward, because then this means that indeed activities at the level of the counties will not be moving right if at all a solution is not reached ASAP, that is as soon as possible. Question then is, why is it becoming so hard to address this particular issue? What is the bone of contention? Why is politics taking center stage on this? Of course, these answers, we get to hear them from the panel that we'll be having this morning, or the panelists of the day. So ensure that you keep it right here. And later on, we are all about money matters as we get to learn. I mean, why is it that the online business is booming? And if it is not booming, then of course the experts are here to tell us what is happening different, especially at this time of COVID-19. Also, we get to understand some more about cryptocurrency. Most of the people getting into all these businesses, what is the secret to survive? What is the secret to thrive? And in the event that you have not successfully managed this, what is it that you did not do right? Welcome on board once again. Like I said, important that you interact with us. We'll also later on be having the numbers that you're supposed to call in or to SMS us on the current affairs discussion. And of course, we'll expect you to be part and parcel of this conversation. So let's start off. The senators have rejected a motion by Senate Majority Whip Irungu Kang'ata to defer the implementation of the third basis for revenue sharing among the counties. 25 senators shot down the formula against 22 who are in support. Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja has, however, introduced another motion to allow the previous revenue sharing formula to be used.
Wambua, for and on behalf of the great people of Kitui County, and for the unity of this country, I vote no.
Christmas Kipchumba Murkomen, I vote no.
25 senators rejected the disputed third generation formula against 22 who voted yes. This now means that counties will have to wait longer for disbursements of 2020-2021 financial year budgets.
This thing about the center, and these ones who have always have it, we will not accept that. This is not right, it is not fair, it's not acceptable. We cannot be allowed to be pushed to the periphery every time.
I want to see the people who are prepared to hang Makueni. So do it now. Don't postpone our misery. Hang us now. We are ready. So that from tomorrow, no senator will say that there is a country or a county of bushes, of livestock and shrubs. No senator will go to a wedding and threaten us. Threaten us on the floor with your vote. I oppose.
Senate Majority Whip Irungu Kang'ata had tabled a proposal to have the third generation formula implemented after 2 years, which would mean 2022-2023 financial year.
Now the kind of options that we have on the table, at least we shall not have a gaining and a losing counties. To me, I thought that was the main problem, Mr. Speaker, sir, why this discussion was so protracted. Now, with the kind of two options we have, please, Mr. Speaker, sir, we shall, once we make the decision, we shall be brothers and sisters, because we shall go home knowing no single county has lost or has gained this financial year or even the next financial year. With those few remarks, I stand to oppose.
Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja, however, proposes the previous formula to be retained and disputed formula to be implemented in the year 2025. Senators from the counties that would have lost in the formula, however, rejecting Kang'ata's proposal.
In the words of Gideon, the die is cast. Alia Yakta, yes. And I want to tell senators, please vote with your conscience. I want to assure members that this vote is not a vote against the government, because I support this government. I was a founding chairman. Of TNA.
The Senate Minority Leader James Orengo blamed the current stalemate over inaccessibility of the president. President Uhuru Kenyatta has been silent on the stalemate even after ODM leader Raila Odinga called upon senators to adopt the Commission of Revenue Allocation recommendations.
I am advising the current president to be more accessible for us to be enabled us to solve these problems. We would not have been here if it was more accessible. I'm telling you without being afraid. I'm not saying it for me. I'm saying it for the country.
At least 18 counties would have lost a cumulative figure of close to 42 billion shillings. Governors have been complaining of delays in disbursement of 2020-2021 allocations, which have stalled county projects. Elizabeth Mutuko, TV47 Nairobi.
And now, Embakasi area in Nairobi County has been declared a COVID-19 hotspot due to the high rate of infections recorded in the area. This even as the number of COVID-19 cases in the country rises to 18,581 after 606 more people tested positive for the virus as of yesterday. Zainab Mohamed has the details.
As Kenya continues to record a surge in COVID-19 numbers, Nairobi County has been the leading county in COVID-19 transmissions, with the Ministry of Health now declaring Embakasi area in Nairobi a COVID-19 hotspot due to the high number of cases recorded in the area. According to Health CS Mutahi Kagwe, necessary measures will be taken should the area continue reporting a rising number of COVID-19 infections.
Embakasi now has become a serious hotspot. If you're living in the Embakasi area, you need to know that Embakasi is a hotspot, and further measures may have to be taken as regards the containment of some of the first areas that are growing way too fast.
According to the statistics, on Tuesday, Embakasi area reported a total of 178 cases distributed across Embakasi East with 84 cases, Embakasi West 33 cases, Embakasi South 28 cases, Embakasi Central 18 cases, and Embakasi North 15 cases. This, as Mutahi says, there are possibilities of sending COVID-19 patients in Nairobi to county hospitals in order to relieve the already overburdened city county.
Back, I was talking about counties not sending people to Nairobi. Quite feasibly then, it is now possible that the reverse may actually be the truth. That some people, if Nairobi gets too overwhelmed before the counties, that it may be possible to do it the other way around.
The number of COVID-19 cases in the country has risen to 18,581 cases after 606 more people tested positive for the virus in the last 24 hours.
The distribution in counties, Nairobi heads the list at 448, Kiambu 54, Kajiado 25, Machakos 16, Uasin Gishu 11, Nakuru 11, Kericho 9, Busia 7, Mombasa 7, Garissa now 6, Bomet 3, Nyeri 2, Narok, Nandi, Embu, Lamu 1, and Muranga has also an additional 1.
75 more people have recovered after receiving treatment from various hospitals across the country, as 14 others succumbed to the virus. For TV47, I'm Zainab Mohamed.
Thank you, Zainab. Now, there were chaos at a city hall early yesterday morning after a section of Nairobi MCAs stormed into Speaker Beatrice Elachi's office trying to evict her. Mlango Kubwa MCA Patricia Mutheu was roughed up by police who were dispersing the MCAs. The Independent Policing Oversight Authority, IPOA, and FIDA have promised to pursue justice for the MCA, as Eli Lugova now reports.
This was the situation at the Nairobi County Assembly Tuesday after some members of County Assembly were barred from serving the embattled Speaker Beatrice Elachi a notice of impeachment. Mlango Kubwa, member of County Assembly Patricia Mutheu, was caught up in the chaos that ensued at the City Hall and suffered injuries after being beaten by armed police officers.
Personally, I can't run towards the tear gas because of my condition. So when I told him, no, I can't go that way, he took the rungu himself and hit me here. When I tried to, he wanted to hit my face, and then I tried to block. That's when he hit my hand. And then 3 others joined him. They dragged me down, and they started beating me from down.
The Independent Police Oversight Authority, IPOA, has launched investigations into today's assault of MCA Patricia Mutheu by police officers when dispersing MCAs at City Hall. FIDA has also condemned the assault of the MCA Mutheu Musimi, promising to pursue legal action. The members of County Assembly had collected 59 signatures to ask Speaker Beatrice Elachi over and above the required 42 signatures for a notice of impeachment motion. The grounds for her ouster include illegal appointment of new assembly clerk, corruption, poor leadership, victimization of assembly staff, and disregard of the law and county orders. A section of women leaders from Nairobi, led by former Nairobi Women Representative Rachel Shebesh, condemned Speaker Elachi's move of involving the police in matters of county assembly, threatening to take action against her.
But I am begging and I am urging, Elachi, my sister, stop it. Stop. Politics is about dialogue. Nobody has ever used force in politics and won.
Mbona aite polisi wanaume kuja kuchapa kina mama wenzake? Na nataka tumuite IG Mutembei leo. Hatuambie ni kwa nini amepea ruhusa polisi kukuja kwenye county assembly kuja kupiga kina mama.
Meanwhile, the Nairobi County Assembly Clerk Jacob Ngwele has suspended the speaker from office until impeachment motion against her is tabled and debated. Eli Lugova, TV47, Nairobi.
And away from that, the supremacy battle between NMS Boris Mohamed Badi and Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko has now taken a new twist, with the two now disagreeing on mayor's residence in Nairobi's Lavington estate. Governor Mike Sonko had already announced plans to renovate the house after it was surrounded by EACC, but NMS claims that the house is under its office. Meanwhile, NMS has promised to clear Nairobi's pending bills once an audit is completed. Josh Ansari reports.
Major Badi, addressing the media in Nairobi on Tuesday, said Nairobi Metropolitan Service will set up 24 level 2 and 3 hospitals within 90 days to improve healthcare services in the city. NMS has also announced it had earmarked 11 public institutions for use as treatment centers as part of its contingent COVID-19 preparedness plan, in addition to the 24 hospitals.
Next week, we are going to do groundbreaking for the level 2 and level 3 hospitals. We do expect within 90 days they'll be complete. We are going to equip them, and remember that all these, out of the 24 hospitals that we are going to build, 5 of them had already started being built.
President Uhuru Kenyatta gave the Ministry of Health the go-ahead to use public institutions as isolation centers. Meanwhile, the leadership row in the city between NMS and Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko seems to be far from over. the two are now disagreeing on the mayor's residence in Nairobi's Lavington estate. Governor Mike Sonko has announced plans to renovate the house, but NMS boss claims the house is under his office.
We are taking up all county houses that have been dilapidated, and what we want to do is just to build them so more staff will have housing. And it's as simple as that. So if he wants to enter it, wait for us to rebuild it and he can enter it.
NMS boss Mohamed Badi has announced plans to pay the pending bills in the county dated back in 2013 after the auditing process is completed.
Ours, we want to verify that within that time the audit and the technical committee that's set to verify those pending bills, whether there are any that the county had paid. So any of those left, we might take care of them.
Joash Onsare, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Joash. Now, the provincial administration has been and remains a thorn in the flesh in the counties since the promulgation of the Constitution in 2010. Governors now decry that county governments have had to shoulder a unique set of challenges for the last 7 years and now want a total change of the Constitution.
County commissioners come second and sometimes first in protocol ranking in counties, not to forget that there is no provision for their office in the 2010 Constitution of Kenya. In a Zoom meeting with the International Court of Justice lawyers, Makueni Governor Kivutha Kibwana says the governors have been facing a myriad of administrative challenges as 7 years of devolution. Kivutha says it has been hectic creating room for the provisional administration system in the counties, observing that full implementation of the devolution will require a total change of the constitution.
Because of the culture, or because of the many, there were people from the national level, there were people, the staff that is, there were people from the local authorities, there were new people employed by the counties. So to get those three groups to jail so that you could begin to have a civil service of all of us, that was a major problem.
Governor Kibwana also decried incessant interference of county systems by the national government.
Now, Homa Bay Governor Cyprian Awiti was put to task to explain the expenditure of 651 million shillings paid to unknown contractors, and yet no service was delivered in this county. Appearing before the Senate County Public Accounts and Investment Committee, Awiti failed to explain how payments were done and who was paid. Homa Bay Senator Moses Kajwang calling on EACC to take over the matter.
Here, that a lot of documentation could not be found. The county government was not able to provide the supporting document, and I'm not surprised that the auditor could only issue a disclaimer opinion. This matter, I can assure you, is already under investigation. This is part of the amount that we are investigating, but the figure is higher than this. Thank you, Chair.
This is a matter of a person being free or spending the rest of their life in jail. It is a very serious offense. In fact, what I would request for you to do is that please throw away that police obstruct completely. Throw it away. If you really want to get to the bottom line of this matter, the first thing that you ought to do is, one, reconstruct all the transactions. Follow up with the banks and also the auditors, maybe through Central Bank. Because I remember in a matter of Nairobi County, the auditors indicated to this committee that they had followed up to establish certain transactions through the Central Bank.
The county should have done what we call due diligence. Because by coming only by saying there was a fire incident in Homa Bay County, then what? So in as much as we agree the transfer was done from the commercial bank accounts to the commercial banks where they were being taken to, there is a paper trail, there is a trail somewhere. That is, Chair, where we are looking at. So I wish the governor would have been magnanimous enough so that we can assist him by providing only these documents. If you can provide us with this, we can be able to make a decision from there, Governor.
And that's exactly what the Auditor General was asking you. The Auditor General is, beside the AIEs, says the propriety of the transfers could not be confirmed. The Auditor General is asking for documents to establish the accuracy and authenticity of the reported transfers. And I think, I know you gentlemen all very well individually, you understand English very well. You cannot come here to the Senate in the year 2020 with regards to a query of 2016 to tell us that we can do it, and you had all the time to do it. This smells like fraud and walks like fraud. 10% of the resources of Homa Bay.
All right, and we go straight to the newspapers of the day. We have the Daily Nation, the Standard newspaper, and we also have the People Daily with me this morning. So we get to understand what is inside as we update you accordingly. And joining me for the review is Alenga Torres-Stud, who's a communication expert. Good morning, Alenga.
Good morning. How
You're
are
well?
you?
Good morning.
Yes.
Good to have you.
Great, and I'm pleased to be on the show too.
All right, and I have the key story newspapers right here with me, and we'll start off with the Daily Nation page by page as we take a look at what has been captured. More or less the same story is cutting across in regards to the issues that are taking center stage on the front page of the Daily Nation right here. It is probably an interesting story that is different from other, the other newspapers. Salaries heartbreak for NAT members. And this story has extensively been captured on page 2, and some 32,556 teachers did not receive improved pay or get promoted after the Teachers Service Commission said they are under the scheme of service that is favored by the union. Another story on the front page is that there's still no deal on revenue sharing formula, and extensively captured on page 7. And another story is about the COVID-19 drugs to be tested in Kenya. Fights after party get messy, after party cash gets messy. That is on page 8 of the Daily Nation. And the other one on COVID-19 is on page 4. So we'll go page by page as we take a look at these stories. So coming to page 2, that is where this story of salaries has been captured. NAT members lose out on pay rise. This battle between NAT and TSC and KUPPET for the longest of time, do you suppose that this is the greatest undoing of the teachers, the unions themselves, the battles that are within them? Because, at the end of the day, there have been agreements, CBAs that have not been implemented, that every other day we have to see our teachers suffering and even going out to levels of having strikes. Alenga, can
yes, yes, I can hear you. I think the issue about NAT and the teachers and KUPPET and the Teachers Service Commission is an issue that really needs to be looked into in terms of finding a lasting solution, because this in turn compromises the standard of education, because a demotivated teacher cannot give 100% in the classroom. And we have had, in a long time, we've had a battle between the teachers every other time. And you find there's a lot of mischief in the way the union and the Teachers Service Commission tries to resolve these issues. If you have an issue that keeps popping up, then it needs a real fix, a complete fix.
But looking at the issue as it stands right now, amid COVID-19, teachers are not in school. Why is it that this debate of, top-up of salaries is coming up again? And should it come anyway in such a time?
I think it elevates the point of dishonesty between the stakeholders in the education sector, because they tend to agree for convenience about something, and then when time passes, then that conversation snaps, and it still remains that they agreed on something else. So when they do not honor, then the teachers have a right to ask for the pact to be honored at any point in question.
All right, well...
And especially during this period of COVID-19, we need to think about our teachers as one of the most affected people. And then it's just it's a time to have an honest conversation on the direction we want our education to take and the kind of investment we want to put in our education.
Mm-hmm. All right, another story here that has been captured on page 3 and also on the front page of the People Daily on the Mkapa burial and how, of course, most of the delegates that were sent by President Uhuru Kenyatta were not able to attend the burial because there are claims that there was a mishap, as of course communicated right here in the country, but as communicated on the other end in Tanzania is that they could not find their way there because of the terrible times on matters weather. First of all, of course, a soldier has fallen. That is one thing. And I'd love to hear your take on the same. The fact that Kenya will not have anybody to represent us or represent us in regards to the same, was not able to have someone to represent us.
It is a very sad moment for East Africa and Africa as a whole because Mkapa was a great leader. He was a statesman. And we remember in 2007 when we were near the brink of collapse, he's actually one of the leaders that stood with us in our saddest moments. And he was able to help us find a way back to normalcy. About the travel and the team that had gone for the burial, we've had different conversations around it. One from the Tanzanian side, it's about the weather, and that was actually captured in a warning that was sent from the Meteorological Department of Tanzania. It was issued yesterday in the morning yesterday. So that being credible information, then I think it is good for us as Kenyans to go by that information, because there has been other side information, communications, specifically on social media, pointing to the relationship between Kenya and Tanzania. But at the moment, we want to categorically refer to Tanzania or handle Tanzania as a good neighbor. So I don't think we need to read much into that the way people have read into it's pretty much on social media.
May his soul rest in eternal peace. That also has been captured on page 4 of the Standard newspaper, and also a write-up right there by Honorable Martha Karua in regards to how Mkapa was or how he conducted himself. He is considered as a person who embraced simplicity in private and public, something that set him apart. Back to the Daily Nation and page 4. Fingers crossed as Kenyans join a search for a cure or in drug test, that is for COVID-19 cure and recruitment, for clinical trials of Redimiza and Tocilizumab. This is a tough one. TCZ is currently undergoing. And yes, the search is on, not just in Kenya, but across the world. What are the likelihoods of us getting this pretty much soon? I mean, COVID-19 is taking a toll on us.
Indeed, COVID-19 is an issue that needs to be taken seriously. First of all, from the preventive measures that have been rolled out by the ministry and other stakeholders. And then on to the vaccine trials or the permanent medication trials. I think Kenya should actively participate in this, because we have had, I think in East Africa, we have had the hardest beating of COVID-19. So it is imperative that we participate keenly and actively in this process so that we find a lasting solution. However, it was noteworthy that even our own institutions, universities, medical research centers should have, even before that, actively participated in trying to find some cure for COVID-19, just to show the world that we are proactively and progressively looking for a solution as part of one of the greatest countries of East Africa. We've been so silent in our own internal systems in trying to actively participate in finding a cure for COVID-19. Even if we found something that was close to then that would be a very good thing for us.
All right, and updates on the same. Polytechnics in Kajiado make isolation beds, and Kenya stands at amongst the top 10 in Africa that have been hard hit by COVID-19. And also in regards to yesterday's report, C.S. Kagwe says the city is close to being overrun, and he hints that there are possibilities of moving patients from Nairobi to other counties. And that one is on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Let's cross over to the next page. That is page 6, and 10 days to isolation. Okay, for any asymptomatic. That is also in regards to matters COVID-19 as captured right there. But as we leave that one aside, now that we've already weighed in on the same, we cross over to a different story right now, and still on page 7. Experts say that new formula favors regions, and we are talking about the formula sharing at the levels of the county. Senators failed to agree on revenue sharing proposal. All this captured on page 7, proposal by economist David Ndii right there, and also capturing the dilemma that was there or witnessed yesterday. Remember, we saw senators going all the way into the night, just trying to chart the way forward on this. The first basis of sharing funds was used in 2013, 2014 to 2016 to 2017 financial years. Why the stalemate, Alenga?
I think there's a lot of mischief in this and a lot of dishonesty from our leaders. Because primarily we had a formula that was used in the first devolution government of 2013, and it had certain parameters that it was observing with percentages placed onto each parameter, which included the land area, the population size, the poverty gap, and all other variables. So, and then another formula was applied in 2016. But then when you look at the formula that was being discussed the other day, it was a complete vacation from all the other two. So the question begs, what necessitated crafting a whole different solution altogether? And then these amendments were done at the committee stage on the document that CRA had given to the Senate. So if these amendments were done by a select committee, wasn't there need for a deliberation of the whole House perhaps, and to make it, to give it a public participation first? And then if you look at the other suggestion that was floated by the Senator for Nairobi, Johnson Sakaja, he was suggesting that it be amended and a formula of Y is equals to A plus B, where A remains a constant, to be applied in the sense that if Y is the county allocation as it were, and A is what it remains to be, and then if there will be an availability of extra funds to the counties, that is B, then it will be given to the counties based on the new formula. So that would give a safeguard to make sure that there's no county that loses what they were already getting. But again, the B would bring an issue because what basis are you going to use? If you're going to use the basis of the population, then it also puts a direct indictment to the census that we had in 2019. You remember the census was quite emotive, and people did not really trust the figures. So it draws back a conversation. Was this engineered to bring in now this revenue sharing formula? So you see, it brings a lot of issues on the table. So in my opinion, what I was thinking is the Senate should have had enough time to deliberate on this formula and have a position, because at the end of the day, who suffers most is the counties that are waiting for allocation, is the counties that are waiting to be able to get a go ahead to now craft their budgets. At the moment, they're in limbo, and if we continue the grandstanding, it is not going to be helpful for the normal people, for the common people in the country. Yes.
All right, yes, millions proposals, but eventually there has to be one that will keep us going, and captured also on the People Daily front page. Emotions ran high in counties revenue debate, expounded some more on page 2 of the same, and also captured on the Standard newspaper. And we wait to see what will happen in regards to the same as we proceed. We also get to have a conversation surrounding that later on extensively. That is on the current affairs segment with Joy Mudivu and Brian Motie. That aside, Jubilee NASA money rows could go to court. This is a story that has been captured by on page 8 of the Daily Nation, and still an issue in regards to how much monies how monies are distributed amongst coalitions, amongst parties, and we've been having issues in regards to the same. We know very well that it's been an issue as Jubilee Deputy Secretary General Caleb Kositani has also complained on how monies are being used at the levels of the party or within the party, and has demanded that the party comes out to explain this to the members. So groups accused in both the ruling party and opposition say that claims are unfounded, and there's need for a common response in regards to how they're going to deal with the money. ANC Deputy Party Leader Ayub Savula says that if they ate the money, let them be prepared for the consequences. That was public money and must be accounted for. Also, we've seen how much it was hard to have distribution of monies at the level of NASA. That is the NASA coalition, ODM claiming the entire chunk, while the other NASA principals arguing that that is pretty much unfair. So county money, party monies, what really bedevils this? And what are the criteria? Should the parties be the people, to decide on their own criteria, or there is a standard one as captured right here on page 8?
The party monies is an issue that drives us to think about our party politics, our understanding of democracy, and our party structures that actually adhere to the call of democracy. Is it transparent? Is it one man take it all? Is it just a formation to enrich some few people? But again, another fundamental issue to look at is the various agreements that our political parties enter in, especially towards elections. So, like if you look at the NASA coalition, if you drill down to what did they agree on, you find it was something totally different. The coalition was formed around getting power. It was they never talked about sharing the allocation. So they can now not bring it as an after-the-fact matter.
Is it not almost immediately, sincerely speaking, if we're talking about sharing power, we are a coalition, what if they carried the day? What if at the end of the day they were in government? Wouldn't it be fair enough to just have a conversation revolving around this, that yes, this money should be, should be distributed this way, and all parties should have equal share?
Exactly, that is the point. But these conversations have to be refined at the time they are forming their coalition. But as it were, when they are forming these coalitions, they basically center on the power part. They forget other things that also form the political party, like the disbursements from the political funds kitty. And then now they are resurfacing to ask of the same when they did not have clear guidelines on how they were going to.
Well, all right. We wait to see what will happen as the parties try to streamline their activities. We cross over to a different story altogether. DPP launches fresh rules for prosecutors, and this story also has been captured on the People Daily, the front page, and equally, expounded on page 4, I suppose. Yes, let's take a look at where it has been expounded on. Yes, Haji Kinoti Field drug zone as DCI keeps key meat. DPP stamps in authority that the decision to prosecute lies squarely with his office. The DCI has made attempts, but they've been rebuffed. And where does this place the war against corruption, as captured on page 9 and that one on page 4 of the People Daily? The battles that are still ongoing between these key figures that are instrumental on dealing with corruption. We have lost Alenga on that one. We'd love to get his take, but as it stands, they say that they will now only go after cases that have high chances of conviction. And let's take this one on the People Daily. In regards to the same, DPP stamps authority, like I said, on that decision to prosecute lies squarely with his office. The DCI has made attempts, but they have been rebuffed. And briefs is that whilst the roles of the investigator and the prosecutor are complementary, Ultimately, the decision to charge rests with the prosecutor, and from time to time, prosecutors will be called upon to provide guidance to investigate agencies in the spirit of an interagency collaboration. And 3, in the spirit of interagency collaboration, prosecutors may be called to offer legal advice and guidance. And lastly, the advice provided should be consistent or with the National Prosecution Policy, Code of Conduct and Ethics of the general and specific prosecution guidelines. The feud and lack of, streamline on these issues, where does it place the fight against corruption, and what are the likelihoods that these key offices will work together towards ensuring that this is a success as opposed to sabotaging the other?
I think we need to understand that you cannot separate the office of the DPP from the office of the DCI.
Yeah.
They have to work they have to work together, because if you're gonna prosecute a case successfully in the courts, the investigation around the case must have been done nicely. So it's therefore imperative for DCI to work in collaboration with the DPP. Whatever there is, whatever situation exists, whatever stumbling block exists between the two must be fixed, and there has to be a commitment to fix it. That is the only way we're going to find justice in the courts. That's the only way we're going to have steady prosecutions. That is the only way we're going to have successful prosecutions in the courts.
And page 10 and 11, just giving us a picture of the corruption cases that are ongoing right now. Senators are furious as KEMSA bosses fail to present papers in graft probe. And now the tender mess at the agency has put at risk over $100 billion donor funds, and officials set away over documents on procurement of COVID-19 equipment. That's pretty much unfortunate. That's the latest that is ongoing on matters corruption. And also ministry is in trouble over 56 million tender that is on the medical gathering kits. And I mean, what is just happening? At this time we're dealing with COVID-19, numerous of funds have been channeled towards that, but still we're not even able to get accountability for something as basic as, the kits that were donated to us by Jack Murr. I mean, genuinely, are we even focused on dealing with COVID-19 as it stands?
The story on KEMSA is annoying, because it tends to try to tell us like maybe the KEMSA bosses were being requested to kindly avail the documentation. These are people that have been indicted, and they have a responsibility to furnish the investigative bodies with whatever information they ask for. So it is even in bad taste to look like the investigative bodies are at their mercies. Yeah. These documents should be availed, and they should. It's a non-negotiable.
All right.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
Yeah. Okay, and coming to the front page of the Standard newspaper, cutting Kinoti down to size, I think we've weighed in on that. The twists and turns and senators decide on county billions. We've weighed in on the same, how Corona has robbed Kenyans their cultures, and I believe cultures of every other person have been robbed across the global fraternity. But to this story that we've not captured on any of the other newspapers that we have looked into, that is on page 2 and 3, the twists and turns as senators make hard a decision. That one, we've looked at it. And City Hall wrangles Mesia as Elachi roped into Sonko's and Badi's tough wars. Nairobi County.
Nairobi County has issues that need to be fixed. But the good thing is that part of the issues are being fixed by NMS. There has been a debate around NMS and its validity to be in charge of the county. But again, if you look at something that is more fundamental, is the provision of services that was really lagging behind. There was a lot of issues in Nairobi, especially issues around water, provision of water, issues around garbage collection, issues around that were really in dilapidated conditions, and NMS has stepped in and they're trying to make things go in a sensible manner. But again, we must think about the administration of the county and the impression that all these frequent city hall wrangles and chaos is actually sending to the entire country. This is the capital city. There has to be order. There has to be a sense of a sense of civilization within the county assembly. So the buck falls and stops with the county assembly of Nairobi. They need to get serious. They are really disappointing the people of Nairobi, because these wrangles are spilling to the public, and there's nothing the public is gaining out of these wrangles. So if you look at the situation that happened yesterday, it was completely uncalled for, because they did not have legit reasons to go and evict the speaker from the assembly. And they have done this before, and it was chaotic. So you cannot keep doing the same thing and expect different results. They need to sit down and talk and iron out the differences that they have, and then leave the county in the way it's supposed to be.
And that is not just witnessed amongst the MCAs and the speaker, but also a battle between the governor himself and NMS, and no bar will operate in Nairobi, says a major general body, of course, amid the wrangles that they've been having with Sonko. But in regards to the bars, taking beer out of the menu will ruin our lives, say bar owners. This move by President Uhuru Kenyatta, while it could be the most noble move in terms of dealing with COVID-19, many people argue that this is highly going to affect, most of the numerous Kenyans who depend on income that comes from, selling alcohol, running bars, running pubs and everything. Most of these people have actually been rendered jobless officially.
We can look at this from pretty many perspectives, but number one is the bar business is being phased out in the meantime, and this is going to have a very huge implication on people that were depending on it for a living, the people that were employed in the sector, the companies that are perhaps importing alcoholic drinks from abroad, the companies that are manufacturing alcoholic products in the country. Where are they going to find the market? And then number two, that is even really serious, is once these bars have been closed down, we could have a situation where people might try now to take beer in secret or in hiding, you get. Yeah. So we might find people even trying to improvise something that could suffice for the alcohol they cannot get from their normal liquor store. And that might even bring into the market some counterfeit and some things that maybe prove to be harmful to our lives in the long run. So it's an issue that needed to be really looked into, in as much as closing down the bars in the meantime is a good thing that tries to stop those gatherings that where we have a widespread of COVID-19.
All right. Well, okay. And I think on that very note, it's time that we get to wind up on the newspapers. We are expecting to have an address, or the team that is going to deal with the issues of education, to have a conversation revolving around what next. Just to pick briefly on the cartoon editions as we get to wind up, the Nation cartoon edition. I will not lock down yet, act responsibly. This talks in regards to the very same conversation that we've had. And the guys are out here saying like, phew, finally we are at peace. I don't know how one would read this one, but yes, there's a lot that is captured on this particular cartoon edition in regards to the lockdown and in regards to the fight against COVID-19 right here in the country, and President Uhuru Kenyatta's address. But as it is, COVID-19 is on standby waiting, and things are not going to be sweet. And crossing over to the cartoon edition of the People Daily right here, it's about the woes of Nairobi County, what we've already discussed. Elachi right there on the run, as of course impeachment motion is right there. And on the other side, the MCAs that are allied to Sonko facing this other side, and it's not going to be an easy one for him, even as been told to stay out of the office until this particular issue is deliberated on. Thank you so much, Alenga Torrestad, for the great insight. Alenga Torrestad is a communication expert. It was great having you this morning. That's where we get to wind up on the newspaper review as we cross over to the current affairs segment. Joy Madivo and Brian Moutier will be on board to expound some more on the revenue sharing stalemate across different counties and also the battles that are ongoing in Nairobi. After this break, remember, important that you be part of this conversation. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela at TV47KE. We'll be right back with more. And welcome back to Morning Cafe. It's time for the current affairs discussion. And key is what is happening in terms of the stalemate that has been there towards the sharing of revenue across different parts of the country. That is on matters devolution and sharing of monies at the levels of the counties. Something that has been debated for a month or so now, and we still are not able to get answers to the same. We also take a look at the wrangles that are happening within Nairobi County. For years now, we're talking about the same. Why is it that there can never be, a way of squaring the issues that are happening in Nairobi? Not the first time that we witness, Speaker Elachi having tussles and bustles with the MCAs of Nairobi County. And this seems like, something that is going to be perennial. But where does it leave the people of Nairobi in terms of experiencing the development? Well, south of a sigh of relief, as many would have argued, on the coming in of the NMS, Major General Badi. But the question is, again, they're here battling with Mike Sonko. So ultimately, what will be the solution to the tussles and wrangles of course, leadership in Nairobi moving forward? Joining me for these crucial conversations is Brian Mutie, who's a governance expert, and we'll also have Joy Mdivo, who's an advocate, to take us through this. And, people who are well conversant with matters governance and the issues that have been taking center stage. Before we get Brian Mutie, let's first start with Joy Mdivo. Joy, good morning.
Good morning, Linda.
You're well?
I am thankful. And
good to have you.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, Nairobi County, you witnessed what happened yesterday.
It's been a long journey in Nairobi. And if you realize, from even before we promulgated the 2010 Constitution, there was always that discussion. Should Nairobi be an ordinary county, or should Nairobi be treated more as a cosmopolitan, metropolitan, because it is actually the seat of power. And this discussion was never really hashed out during the constitutional passing process. But in practicality, we are now seeing the importance of having that conversation. I'm aware in the BBI there is a suggestion of separating the functions, not abolishing the county, but separating the functions. So a little bit of what the president has done now. So you say that there are some functions that will remain in national government and some functions that will remain in the county government. And so that the governor and the mayor of Nairobi, for lack of a better word, each know what they're supposed to do. What we have now is a situation where the Nairobi Metropolitan Services is in existence. It is domiciled in the office of the president. And so it has some level of protection around it. But its basis in law is very unstable, is very unsound. So right now it is operating more by force of political will rather than by force of law. On the other hand, you have the duly elected governor of Nairobi, as well as his MCAs. However, like you said, that county government was dysfunctional to begin with. No deputy governor, the relationship between the governor and the county assembly was not very good. The relationship with the speaker was non-existent. In fact, she was out of office for a while. So that necessitated the coming in of the NMS to sort of have some bare minimum guaranteed to Nairobi residents, and then everything else is supposed to follow after that. However, that's not happening, because you can see the governor trying to claw back that which he had surrendered to the national government. Now, the misfortune with that is that at the end of the day, we don't have very good jurisprudence about what we're going to do in Nairobi. Because this experiment with the NMS is not only expensive, but the wrangles cloud the good things that are happening, even with the NMS. On the other hand, you cannot discount the will of the people in giving us a governor. So what this tells me is that moving forward, we have to find a legal footing where we make a determination on how Nairobi will be run. And
before we even get to that, Joy, before we get to finding a legal footing, there is what is enshrined in the Constitution, the constitutionalism of this. First of all, if we go back to what is supposed to be done constitutionally, have we been able to achieve that? Have has the leadership in a way been able to, first of all, embrace constitutionalism in this case before we even proceed to trying to find, what will be the legal ground, which eventually, anyway, will take us back to what is enshrined in the Constitution?
So if I look at the law strictly, constitutionalism, no, it fails that test. And the basic reason is because the Nairobi people were not given a choice or even asked before Governor Sonko was invited to sign over transfer functions to NMS.
Yeah.
There was no public participation. There was no engagement. In fact, the public participation came after the fact. However, you will find many Kenyans will not be very averse to what is happening with the NMS because Nairobi County was not delivering. It was delivering on some things. It was building roads. You've seen what Governor Sonko has been putting out. So there is that which the governor has been doing. But in terms of leadership and direction and policy, that has been lacking in City Hall for a long time. And so the NMS coming in, being apolitical, being above that fray and operating on another plane is a welcome thing. Why? This is where the seat of government is. This is a UN, is a center for UN headquarters, for the UN in Gigiri. This is the place where you have got the diplomatic corps. This is a place where you've got many international NGOs that have their headquarters and their hub here. There are certain services that we simply cannot afford to not have. There's a certain level of functionality we cannot afford to not have. And I think that's what the president looked and said, you know what, on this one, I'm going to just use my fiat and I'm going to, that's why it is even domiciled in the office of the president. The NMS. It is not in the Office of Ministry of Interior. It is not in the any other ministry. It is domiciled in the Office of the President. And that tells me it was the President simply saying, you know what, Nairobi is too big to fail. We are taking it over for the sake of. So the law has been bent to accommodate a need that was urgent. And that is why Nairobi find themselves where they are. But that's what I was saying now, moving forward, there is need to have it on a more sure footing because what you see Governor Sonko doing now, when he goes to court and says this deed actually is faulty, the court, if they read the letter as it is, they'll agree with him because indeed this is faulty. But how are we moving back to pre-General Badi? We can't. We have already moved forward. We are in the NMS season right now. So the government needs to just make Nairobi separate the functions and make it work so that whoever is running NMS knows what they're supposed to do.
Is the government doing that? Is the government doing that when you see now General Badi being dragged into these shenanigans, hula-baloos, and exchange of words, and also that declaration by the courts at some point in time declaring that transfer of functions as faulty and illegal? I mean, is the government doing any justice in this case?
They are trying, but like I said, because the beginning was on an unsure footing, they're at a place where it's very difficult to claw back. So both of them are caught in between a rock and a hard place because the governor took himself to State House, sat down and negotiated. All he was saying at that time was trying to avoid an impeachment. He did not think the process through. Now he's telling us that he was given alcohol to drink. I doubt somebody pinched his nose and forced it down his throat. He took it willingly. He knew what he was doing. So he's not hoodwinking anybody by telling us, oh, I'll strict you to this. No, he was saving his own skin. He was not thinking about Nairobi, and he needs to own up to that fact. So in saving his own skin, yes, he was not impeached, but he signed Nairobi away. Now, the basis of that signing was wrong. Because, like I said, there was no public participation, there was no awareness of what the implications were. It was not discussed, even by the representatives, even if it was not brought to the general public.
And the leadership knowing this, Joy, the leadership knowing this very well, the president himself knowing this very well, the advisors around the president knowing very well that constitutionally, in making decisions, such crucial decisions, it's important that there's involvement of the public. And I mean, Jubilee itself, the government itself has found, itself in such a terrible situation where in numerous cases they found themselves in court, courtesy of being accused of not conducting public participation on issues that are crucial to the common mwananchi. Why do they still proceed to acknowledge this request by Governor Sonko, so to speak, and even takes up some of these functions without ensuring that the people are able to be involved on this? Because, I mean, eventually you know what would be the ultimate direction that this will go.
I think it's because at that time there was a crisis. Nairobi was in crisis, and at the same time, Nairobi was in crisis, and at the same time, the governor was in crisis. He was facing impeachment. He was facing a very hostile county assembly. He was facing a very difficult time. So with the government being in a catch-22 situation where your national, your biggest county is not working, and with the governor being in a situation where he has just seen YT to walk the plank, I think neither of them was thinking as clearly as they should have been. And so that is why they were in the situation where they were, where the thing was done in haste. It was done without due regard to the process of the law. And at the end of the day, like you have asked, why did they do it knowing that the constitutionality was not sound? It's because there is enough law to give basis to what was going on. But at the same time, there was, how do I put it, not enough time to do it correctly. So it was a matter of urgency. It had to be done because of the extraneous circumstances. What I would have expected, and which is what the government has tried to do, is that after the fact, to try and regularize the position. But Governor Sonko now is not playing ball. And that's why I think the president has told them, you know what, you stay there, throw your tantrums, as we are carrying on with what we are supposed to do. But like I said now, moving forward, we shouldn't go into the elections, for example, without a proper deed of how Nairobi is going to be run. Whether it will be done under the BBA process, whether it will be done by an act of parliament, whether it will be the Attorney General just writing an opinion, something has to be done to clarify what is happening with Nairobi. Because this push and pull, like you said, is not good for the economy, is not even good for the face of the country, to the general, to the world actually. This is our capital. How can you not know who's in charge? It's ridiculous.
Right. And speaking of which, one would want to equate the failure of Sonko as the failure of Jubilee, because we all are cognizant to how much Jubilee was thirsty for Nairobi at some point in time. Kidero failing was considered as, failure for ODM in how he dealt with the issues at Nairobi. Then came in Sonko. First of all, like you rightfully put, do you support that, Jubilee did not take time to think over what awaited them in terms of dealing with Nairobi? Because remember, these conversations were there. And anyway, as they would have said, their preferred candidate was Peter Kenneth. Do you suppose Peter Kenneth would have handled things differently?
That's why when somebody says that this is a problem for Jubilee, sometimes I feel for them. Because they really tried to make Sonko not their candidate.
Yeah.
But Sonko was a force of nature, is a force of nature in terms of Nairobi politics.
Yeah.
And having been in this city for a while, he owns a certain clout in the city. And if Jubilee really wanted to clinch Nairobi governor seat, they had to back Sonko simply because of the person that he was. And I think I stated on this show before. Right now, in fact, we really ran the very real risk of Governor Sonko choosing to run by himself, without a party, and still clinching the Nairobi governor seat.
What does it speak about the voter?
Leader.
What does that speak about the voter?
And that's where I was headed. It wasn't a Jubilee problem, it was the Nairobi voter problem. We chose Sonko as our governor. We gave him that mandate, knowing his theatrics, his antics. He did not disguise who he was to us. We saw him with his yellow hair. We saw him at the Hague rolling on the ground. We have seen him, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we still said, we want this one. So it is the Nairobi voter, really. Jubilee simply gave him the ticket to run, but we are the ones who chose him. And I'm afraid even if he runs tomorrow, we might still choose him again, because such is the nature of democracy, where the majority have their way, even though the minority have their say. But now, that back to your question of what does that say about our voter? Our voters need to become more discerning. I need to become more discerning. Don't ignore the signs. It's the same way with choosing a life partner. If you find somebody who is a womanizer, is a manizer, is a community wife, there's something like that, and you find somebody who is a general party animal, after you marry them, they're not going to become, a nun or a monk and sit within the house and say prayers every day. They'll be exactly who they've been all along. So we need to come to a place where, as voters, we don't get swayed by random party politics or sloganeering, six-piece, let us start interrogating our leaders for what they are. Because if we had been serious with Sonko, Jubilee at nomination, he should never have succeeded. That it should have been somebody else's problem. But now, because the ruling party sponsored him, that is why even I think the president felt it more so that he needs to sort it out. Because Waititu was a Jubilee governor. This is another Jubilee governor. How can it be that the Jubilee governors are topping the list in failing? So he had to do something decisive and something quick. But this was a failure squarely by the Nairobi voter.
All right, okay. Do you suppose Nairobi has been militarized from what you see today?
No, it hasn't. You know what militarization means? I'm almost sure you are not alive in 1982.
Why am I
Because 1982 Nairobi was militarized. I mean, those days when you're talking about curfew, it was a matter of if you're found in town, you're walking with your ID in your mouth, with your hands in the air, all the way to the estate. It wasn't
but you know, honestly speaking, this would come in step by step, probably. You saw what Badi said, that he will ensure that no bar operates, which is okay. Anyway, it's a directive by the president. So maybe we're just yet to see the military aspect of it.
No, he has a military background, and we have seen this before. It's not just him. We saw it also with Kibaki. When he put Major General in charge of the police, he decided to get a person from the military and put him in charge of the police then force. And you saw him also taking him to poster. Because military men have got a certain level of discipline and a singularity of focus that helps them to deliver on a task. So if you tell them the mission is to do this, they follow through until they deliver on the mission. Politicians, on the other hand, will want to pander to this interest and pander to that interest. And so you find sometimes something is lost in translation because of the politics. And I think that's why you've seen the president falling back on the military people, because it's familiar territory. He's their commander-in-chief, and he knows all it takes is one phone call, and all he'll get is, yes, sir. He'll not get, yes, sir, but. He'll just get a, yes, sir. And that's what he needs right now, especially because he's pushing legacy. He needs somebody that he can count on. But militarizing Nairobi, I mean, people need to look up that word in the dictionary. That is not what is happening in Nairobi. There are no boots on the ground. There are no tanks in the streets. I mean, we are still fairly civil.
If they militarize Nairobi and we see, you know, activities running as they're supposed to be, I mean, after all, wouldn't you say that people will celebrate the same? But anyway, how do you rate the performance of NMS so far? And what do you expect from them moving forward?
NMS have hit the ground running. We have seen, okay, there's the cosmetic things that we have seen, but there's also the general feeling of order. Like if you walk around the city, it looks a lot cleaner, a lot more organized. There are some bits that are still chaos and mayhem. Like if you drive down towards Haile Selassie, that part of town is still a shambles. So they've dealt with the west of Tomboya Street, but east of Tomboya Street is still virgin territory for them, I guess. So they have a ways to go. But you can see some order creeping in, coming over also into the more, how do I put it? Not within CBD, but around CBD. You can see some form taking shape. And that's why I'm saying, not just the cosmetics, we also want to see order in how things are run. But I'm thinking, what I'm seeing NMS doing a lot of is more of the cosmetic part. But there's the projects that they're running in the slums, which I think now is more to where Nairobians are really hankering. The boreholes that they're sinking, providing water to the people in the slums. Now, that's something that touches my heart, because these are groups that have been neglected for a long time and have been used in campaign purposes. So if we can overcome the political barriers and actually deliver some services to the most underserved members of Nairobi City, then in my book, it's a success, it's a score. That's what needs to happen. But on the other hand, we have to find a way to also balance the will of the people. We've had some MCS complaining that their own projects are being stalled in favor of NMS projects. Now that doesn't need to happen, because at the end of the day, the loser is the Nairobi person. It's not the MCA. The MCA is fine wherever he is. So there has to be the balance between trying to accomplish NMS without, and trying to accomplish for city county government without undermining each other. Because if you all do well, the person who gains is the voter, is the Nairobi resident. And when you come back to make your case, whether as a voter or as a Nairobi resident, I will be favored to say, you know what, I have seen the good in this, and so I give it a take. So both of them need to remember it's all for the Nairobi residents, so they stop undermining each other. But so far, I think we have seen the difference, and it actually makes sense in our lives. Like, I'm one of those people actually who heaved a sigh of relief, but having grown up in the ghetto, let them go east of Tomboya. There's a lot more that they can do on that side.
But for how long? How sustainable is this? If the courts at some point declared this change or this transfer of functions as illegal?
Well, for the time being, it seems like it's being pushed through. And like I said, by being domiciled in the office of the president, they have enough legal backing to carry on, because it's not a replacement of Nairobi County government. This is a department in the office of the president, for lack of a better word. It's a special project. And there's the budget within the OP to give them more function. You saw also that they transferred some of the staff from the Nairobi County government to the NMS. That means they also have the manpower, the skillful manpower, to do that which they need to do. And if they have the manpower, then it means the county government does not have the manpower. So if the county government has got money to start hiring new people to replace the ones who've gone with the NMS, then they can go ahead and throw a tantrum. So as far as I'm concerned, the court orders, okay, they need to be obeyed. But in this case, it's a case of you're shutting the gate after the horse has bolted. NMS is already taken off. You're shutting the gate, yes, but NMS has already taken off. So on this particular score, even if the law was not behind them as they started, they have found a place to hide themselves. And they'll continue functioning, as far as I'm concerned, they'll continue functioning there until the next general election. I don't see NMS backing down.
All right. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela at TV47KE. The numbers to call running down on your screen, and the SMS short code equally running down on your screen. We want you to be part of this conversation. It's now time that we take a short break, pay some bills, and we come back with more on the same as we get to wind up in Nairobi and cross over to the stalemate that is there in regards to sharing of revenue across the counties after this break. And welcome back to Morning Cafe's Current Affairs segment. We are right, of course, here discussing matters Nairobi, and we're thankful for the feedback that you're sending in. Once again, we welcome your feedback. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela at TV47KE. Let's get to proceed with this. We have Joy Mdivu still trying to get a hold of Brian Mutie, but we'll proceed all the same. And do you suppose the wrangles that are ongoing between the key figures, the governor, the national government, or the NMS in regards to dealing with Nairobi is what is giving the MCAs the stamina to equally, act rogue or act tight on the way they're handling the issues?
What you're seeing with the MCAs, it's a matter of the two centers of power playing out in the National Assembly. In the county assembly. So there are those who are even, according to their actions, are allied to what the president is doing in the NMS. Mm-hmm. And then there are those on the other hand who are allied to Governor Sonko and they feel loyal to him.
Yeah.
And because of these two centers of power, then you've got these two people, these two groups of people, each feeling that they have enough push behind them to sort of give themselves how do I put it? Mm-hmm. The courage to do that which they aspire to do. So if somebody wants to hit a general body, instead of going after General Badi directly, they hit at Senator Elachi because they imagine she's the one who's giving him a footing in the county assembly. Mm-hmm. If somebody wants to go after Governor Sonko, then they go for the impeachment of the governor, and they use the senators who are allied, the county assembly people who are allied to Ms. Elachi. Mm-hmm. And so you find it's what's happening at the top being played out at the county assembly level. Mm. Now, like I said before, it's defeatist because in this particular situation, the way the NMS deed has been drafted, there's some functions that have gone to the NMS, but there's still some functions that must be done by the county assembly. So when there's wrangles, it means that the services that have been left with Nairobi County Assembly are still not getting done. So, like the other day, you saw Ms. Elachi issued a statement telling the county assembly members there'll be no sittings until September.
Yeah.
During that time, what happens to Nairobi County services? They are left to just the workers in the county. With the stalemate in the national government, it means even the MCAs right now should be lobbying their senator for what Nairobi needs. That's where their focus should be, on the county revenue sharing. But right now, they're caught up in street battles. It's almost ridiculous. So it's what's happening at the top that is playing out at the county assembly level. And it is something that is unfortunate because neither has enough clout to do without the other. Mm-hmm. So they must come to a place where they find a way of working together. But right now, nobody has a maturity to step up to the plate and just, bite the bullet and say, you know what, here's my hand, let's work together. Let us do this for the sake of Nairobi. That is where they need to get to.
All this that is happening, Joy, is being backed by what is enshrined in law. The MCAs will do whatever it is that they'll do. And they say, this is a clause that has been captured, that has been highlighted, and this is how this is supposed to be handled. The Elachi will equally do the same, and say that I am being backed by the law, clause this, article this of the Constitution, and, County Act. Equally, there's the court, which will tell Elachi, do not proceed to do this, something that Elachi would still proceed and do. And then we ask ourselves, does this come out to speak volumes on how much we have lacuna in law, on how much there's still so much that needs to be looked into in terms of what it is that we have enshrined in the Constitution?
There's some things that in law are hard and fast, and they are settled. And then there are things that are open to interpretation. Unfortunately, because our Constitution is still so, it's just 10 years old, it's still very young and elastic, there's plenty of pages in the book that we really haven't understood and grasped. And that's where you find a lot of litigation around the Constitution. So the people who are coming up after us in the next maybe 10 years, some of those things will have been settled in law and in case law. So there'll be nothing to litigate, it will be clear. But for now, unfortunately, because our Constitution is still, it's not new, but it's still new in implementation, there's a lot of wriggle room that has to be figured out. Yeah. And that is where now people take advantage, because as long as there's something open to interpretation, you can take it to court for litigation. However, there's a word I used just a few minutes ago, maturity.
Yeah.
Maturity is in deciding, you know what, this is infertile, I'm not going to follow this direction. Let me work towards a more sustainable course. But in Kenya, for some reason, we really want to settle political scores at whatever cost. So, for example, if we talk about impeaching the governor, we realize, okay, forget about Waititu's impeachment. That one we have agreed was a public lynching. There was it's not a good precedent. But if you look at for example, the Waiguru one or the Wambora one, that threshold for impeaching a governor is really high. So when you see MCS talking the speech, we are going to impeach the governor, it's not a walk in the park. The threshold is really high. And truth be told, they are going to struggle to attain that threshold unless they get the extra impetus that the Senate got when they were pushing Waititu out. On the other hand, when you talk about you're going to impeach the speaker, they've tried to get Speaker Elachi out. She stayed actually by force of just sheer terror. They terrorized her and she was not able to work for a few days. You remember the famous Mapiripiri commercial incident?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, she has come back and she is in seat. That also should tell them it's not that easy to just chase away a speaker. Maturity would dictate that those factors have now been settled, that these are not paths to follow. Can we follow other paths to attain what it is we want to attain? But you can see people are still looking to score political points. They're still trying to make political headway. And at the end of the day, come 2022, Sonko will no longer be governor, but he will probably still be the NMS in the OP. But those MCAs will have to come back to us, the Nairobi residents, and look for votes to go back and serve us. So they think we'll give them our vote next time around. So people need to get a bit of foresight and direction to realize what you're doing today, we are noting down. And we are going to give you your scorecard once you're done serving us.
If you've seen what has happened after President Uhuru Kenyatta decided that, yes, we're not going to have consumption of alcohol anyhow in the country. And Kenyans were pointing fingers at Sakaja wanamwambia wewe, my friend, 2022
ulichoma.
Alichoma na 2022 wanamgoja. So, well, maybe, like you say, I think I tend to agree. So, as we finish on this, or we close up on this in a minute or so, first of all, this politics of intolerance, well, I mean, are there no ways of just sitting down and addressing issues as opposed to being radical to a point where, we have to now loop in the police to equally be radical on some of the MCAs in something that just can be, agreed within the boardroom. Okay, well, not within the boardroom per se, but, on a gentleman's ground, on the table, and people argue this out. And also looking at that then, moving forward, the MCAs.
You remember, that was the basis upon which the BBI was promulgated, was that we need to come to a place where we've got the politics of tolerance, where political rivals can sit down and work together and work through things. That was the basis upon which the promise that was sold to us with the handshake was that, political rivalry does not equal enmity, and we can still work together even if we are political rivals. And the President and Honorable Raila, you have seen a lot of cooperation amongst them over the last 2 years, and you have seen more people joining the cooperation bandwagon over the last few months. And that tells you there's some level of demonstration at the top of how this tolerance is supposed to be played out. But at the same time, we have seen it resulting in even more hardline. It's had the opposite effect of crystallizing people into positions to a level where it's actually having the opposite effect of pushing people away rather than drawing everybody around the table. So I agree with you. Do people not have the serenity in them to just sit down and discuss things as adults? In Kenya, for some reason, we feel everything must be a score, everything must be won. I'm a lawyer, I practice in the law courts. The case is either won or lost. There are very few times when you're going to court and you're actually trying to find a win-win. And you'll go to court even on the premise of, we have tried to negotiate outside court, it's not worked. Now you tell us who is right and who is wrong. I think it's something in a national psyche. We need to just recalibrate and get to a place where we have the common good at heart, where I'm willing to take some discomfort for the sake of my brother, which is also the argument with this county revenue sharing, manenos, where sometimes it's fine for me to take a hit for the sake of the team.
Yeah.
But in Kenya, we find it very difficult to do that. It's something that is unfortunate, and especially in the current political climate, I think we need to find that again, because many people, that's why they will feel excluded from government when their person is not in power. And yet, really, once you're in government, you ought to serve all people. It shouldn't be just the people who elected you. That is not right. That is not even fairness. We give you a mandate, yes, but to serve all people, even the ones who did not vote for you. So I think as a national psyche, we need to change that, where we start thinking more as Kenyans and as patriots, but our leaders also need to demonstrate it without being so intolerant of views, so intolerant of each other, and just seeking some fake homogeny. Let it come as a result of growing organically, rather than being forced and coerced into being one. It's not working when it's forced. It looks really bad.
And speaking of intolerance, as I introduce the next subject that you've also, by default introduced, is on the county sharing stalemate within the counties as it stands right now, sitting up until 9 p.m. without getting a solution after, a series of constant meetings to address the same. Politics of blackmail has been clear in black and white on the handling of this particular issue. So at this point, then Irungu Kang'ata coming out to say that msipofanya hivi na sisi hatutafanya hivi. And it has not started with Irungu Kang'ata. I think you saw also what ODM had said in terms of the committees and all that. So they came out to say, Jubilee, you have to go by what we say, because if you put Tanga members of parliament, they're going to cripple the activities of the BBI, and it was awarded to them. And the likes of Baba, who probably have been against what would be the 1 shilling, 1 man, 1 vote sort of formula that is being projected, in a way twisted to almost agreeing to it.
It would be very good if our leaders learned to work on principle rather than on political expediency. Because somebody is able to twist you if you do not have principles. If you are untwistable, let me say that. If they are able to get something to twist you on, then it means you're not operating on principle, you're operating on other parameters, and everything else becomes unsafe. And that's what I was saying earlier, on a national level, we need to come to a place where we have the picture of the national good, of the common good, rather than just exigencies for now. There is need for a third generation formula. That one is not in doubt.
Right.
Every so often, the formula has, not formula, but the basis of revenue sharing has to be re-examined, because there are changing circumstances. There are circumstances that improve. There are circumstances that roll back maybe some gains that had been made. So there's always need to review that revenue sharing basis. And the reason for that is simple. It's because, and people have correctly argued it, that when you're looking at money, it should follow function, it should serve people. It cannot just be random money. But we cannot discount the fact that there's some areas in our country where, from colonial times, were specifically left out of development because they were deemed to be too unproductive to be of any worth. So when the British were working on the railway line, they cut it across the places where they felt there was something to be carried on that railway. And so they concentrated development on that way. So that's where there were schools, that's where there was infrastructure, that's where there was... And so there are parts of this country where even the population is not high because it was inhospitable or let's say less convenient for people to settle there. Now, in doing devolution right, we have to have cognizance of all these facts. So if you just say, this place is full of landmass, we have given people all this money, and it's just 20,000 people getting, X amount of money, is this fair? You're not taking into account that for that person to collect his 1 shilling from Nairobi, he spends 5 shillings to get here and get back. That becomes a problem. And that is why the basis of the formula has to be an impassioned discussion. It cannot have feelings, for lack of a better word. It has to be a common sense discussion. So we say, look, what can we realistically do to help you get here, to help you get there? Right. There was something called the Equalization Fund that, in my opinion, has not been utilized to the level that we had envisaged it should. So it was 1.5% of our budget, of our national budget, specifically to help marginalization.
Yeah.
And it actually had a sunset clause. So it wasn't equalization forever. There's a day when we would say, you know what, you guys are now at the same level as other Kenyans in terms of infrastructure, so we can roll that back. Yeah. So even on the issues of roads, land mass, and you can use the equalization funds to sort of cushion the counties that are getting less.
Yeah.
But that has not been forthcoming. Then there's the other issue that people have correctly argued. Some of the larger population counties contribute a lot more to the consolidated fund because people are the ones who pay taxes into the consolidated fund.
Yeah.
And so it's unfair when you claw back too little back to the people. So that's what I was talking about. And in an impassioned discussion, remove the feelings, you're taking money away from our people. Don't just look at it like that. Look at it in terms of what do we stand to gain versus what do we stand to lose. And that is what I feel sometimes the discussion becomes more about Keleweke, Tanga, ODM, NASA, and we forget these are lives we're talking about. Yeah. And the cake is not growing any bigger. So what we have to share is this amount.
Yeah.
So it must be shared. So it's not like saying everybody must gain. Okay, but the cake is the same.
Yeah.
So how is everybody being? So that's why the discussion has to be very, very balanced and unimpassioned.
At what point do we strike the balance? How many months later or how many days later these conversations ongoing? And yes, we have specialists on matters economy trying to weigh in, the likes of experts like Ndi, also saying that, you know, this formula that has been presented, the one that we are bargaining on right now, is going to favor the developed countries. But equally, like you said, at some point in time, it will be unfair to award the people who've been, you know, giving so much to the coffers, very little. And this is the argument, the marginalized, while they look at this as something that would, you know, be unfair to them. The question is, on the previous years, you've also received something to at least show that, you know, we've done this in terms of development, but you have literally not done so much so. So is this to be blamed on the people or is to be blamed on the previous leadership? And if they are to be denied whatever it is that they can get right now, what would it mean? Because yes, at the end of the day, you want them to meet up, of course, with the rest. But equally, there's not so much to show in regards to the same. So it feels like, you know, you will be draining these other ones every other day at the expense of people who are not focused on developing their areas.
You have brought out a very important question. And that is the question of over the last 10 years, with the Generation 1 and the Generation 2 revenue sharing basis, there are some counties that have gotten a lot more than, in terms now what we're talking about the population, in terms of ratio and per capita gains, they have gotten a whole lot more. And in that 10 years, have they done enough to try and sort of bridge that gap? Because that's why they were being given a larger helping hand. And that's why you see some counties with high population saying, look, for the last 2 seasons, we have sat this one out. Now we must speak up on behalf of our people. This is a very important conversation because even in this third generation formula, there's 2 things that have been introduced that I think are important. One is fiscal prudence, and the other one is fiscal responsibility, I think, or raising revenue. So it's how have you spent what you have been given? And how are you making more? What else are you making? Now, I like using the example of my home county, Trans Nzoia, because we are among the counties that are generating the least revenue, apparently. And I'm thinking this is a county that is the home of Kitale, the breadbasket of this nation. There's a lot of commercial farming that goes on there. Why are we collecting the least revenue from Trans Nzoia, really? There has to be a level of incentivizing people to actually work what they have so that they generate more revenue. So if you do not generate revenue and you're expecting other countries to generate revenue so that money can be shared to you, that shouldn't happen. It should cost you. If you have been given funds and you're not accounting for them the way you should, it should cost you. And so that 1% that has been given to fiscal prudence and fiscal revenue generation, I think is also part of the ways of trying to sort of equalize that, is to try and clamp it down and say, you know what, we are watching how you're spending what we've given you, and we are watching whether you're trying to generate more with what you have. Now, this is a biblical principle. No, I'm a believer in the Bible. It's a biblical principle. Remember the parable of the guys who are given 5 talents, 2 talents, and 1 talent. If you take your 1 talent and bury it and do nothing with it, the next time the revenue is being shared, you get nothing. Because we realize you are a consumer, you're not a producer. And so the challenge is to the county governments. The first few years we have seen governors just, it's been a free-for-all party. Because the money to county governments goes as a matter of course. The governments cannot say we are not going to give out money to counties. The way the constitution crafted it is you must release those funds. And so there's some county governments that have been very irresponsible with their funds. So this is the time to now punish, for lack of a better word, punish those who have not been using their money correctly. And the ones who have put their money to good use, give them more. So that they can demonstrate how a well-run county
are we approaching
But
this?
that said, that said, the fairness has to come in because, like you put it correctly, my people cannot be working hard to generate revenue to pay into the consolidated fund. But when time comes for services to be offered, my people are given a very, very short end of the stick. It can be a little bit longer than it's been before. So the balance has to be struck. It must.
Yes, because it's debatable, then we say the balance has to be struck. But in these issues that we're looking at, do you suppose there's some level of misplaced priorities?
There's not exactly misplaced priorities because the formula has to be to work for the money to start being dispersed. So there is something there. But also at the same time, there's the role of politics in all this. And I think that's what has clouded a lot of the discussion. Because if you reduce it to politics, then at the end of the day, you lose the big picture. And the big picture is the Kenyans need this money to come back. So don't look at it in terms of it's going to an opposition, it's going to Tanga, it's going to... That's not the argument. Or looking for support outside the Senate. Like I said on another media house, the Senate has got 2 main responsibilities. Is to take care of the counties and to handle any impeachment of the president and of governors. Now on this one, this is one of their core functions. This is a reason why they exist. This is where we should be seeing them in their finest hour, in their element. And so for them to struggle on this, for it to take, like now that's 5 hearings now, 5 sittings, sorry, and we still don't have a resolution. In my opinion, they are failing to demonstrate leadership. We are counting on the Senate to give us leadership as the nation. The county governments are waiting for leadership, and it's not coming through. We're also seeing a failure of the House leadership. Like you said, when Senator Kangata sounds like he wants to intimidate his colleagues, we shouldn't be seeing that playing out in the public. The wheeling, dealing needs to be done in private, and people need to understand what the whys and the wherefores before they get to the floor of the House. I think you noticed yesterday there was the red ties, the Kenya ties that came in. You could tell somebody had done some socialization and had gotten some buyouts, that even some ladies were donning ties on top of their dresses. That's what needs to happen. It has to happen away from the public glare, so that when you come, all we are hearing is facts, figures, reasoning. So that when we sit down, even us as the consumers of the information are like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That doesn't make sense. Or that argument makes sense. So that it's not just the eyes have it, the nays have it. Let us understand it. Because if we remove the politics out from it, then it means if your brother from the other side is the one who holds the key to passing something, then you have enough maturity to work with them to accomplish it. But if we are simply going to vote party lines, or to vote, I don't know, wishes of that come from some other place, then we're going to lose the plot. And at the end of the day, the Kenyan voters, like I said, they are watching. And in 2 years, we'll give you your scorecard, we'll give you your report card.
And speaking of the leaders that are debating on this, before we come to that, I'll borrow from what the Deputy President William Ruto says in a tweet, that the ongoing revenue formula debate is unnecessarily divisive. The Constitution envisages fair and equitable sharing of all our resources. The legislature must, as per its mandate, structure a win-win formula that is sensitive to proposals made without hurting any county. He finishes by saying inawezekana. Do you suppose inawezekana, Joy?
Inawezekana, but when you listen to the tweet from the Deputy President, you can tell he's trying to be safe on both sides. He doesn't want to offend the people who want population formula. He doesn't want to offend. So he says, you know what, all of you can have a little bit of something. But the spirit behind the tweet, I think, is something that I can get behind. The tweet itself doesn't tell us much. It's just, all of you are our children, all of you are very good people, please play nicely. But the spirit behind the tweet is what I think I want to get behind. It's just saying, look, don't look at it like my people are quote unquote losing money. What else are you getting that makes up for what you're quote unquote losing? Because getting more money, of course, looks good on paper, but what does it translate to on the ground? Can we look at it in terms of big picture? In terms of, okay, my region has benefited to this level for the last 10 years. Maybe it is time for somebody else to have benefit. So can the discussion be more than just shillings and cents? And not just that, I wish also, and I think maybe I need to spend a little bit more time also looking at this in terms of, okay, so what has happened to some of these countries over the last several years, such that now the formula is sort of stepping away from them, and those ones who are gaining, what have they been forfeiting over the last 2 years, such that now they're in a position where they can gain more? Because if you understand that dynamic, then you can see, also that's why they need to take an extra 100 million off. It gives you context. But if you just say, our people are losing this amount of money, it sounds terrible. But I don't think at the end of the day, it should be about who's gaining and who's losing just in terms of the money. It should be, at the end of the day, we are building this country called Kenya. Is it helping us build more, or is it helping us demolish? And at the end of the day, as leaders giving us leadership, give us a formula that not only all of you are behind, but that even we as Kenyans can support. Because at the end of the day, it goes, those votes are so few, we can afford to throw them under the bus. That's not talk that is building nationalhood. It's not talk that we want to hear. So I can get behind the spirit of the tweet, where everybody comes to the table with clean hands, and at the end of the day, whatever we walk away with, contentment with godliness is great gain. That's what we need.
Thank you so much, Joy Mdivu. And as you say, Kenya wanna watch, I will not go without reminding us of this, where Senator Irungu Kangata says that Sasa, we know the people who are supporting this particular formula. And somebody else here writes and says, you mean in this very chaotic Senate where everyone is talking, Gideon Moi can't even utter or fumble a word. He can't even raise a point or order to sneeze. He is just waiting to vote.
He's a voter par excellence.
There you go.
No, we made the comment yesterday. I thought if you saw the headline on the Standard yesterday, it had all the leaders and what their stake was in this country revenue sharing. And then somebody made the comment and said, where is Gidi in all this? You mean he can't? So
Kenyans are watching.
If he's a national leader, he needs to assert himself more. True. And if he chooses to not assert himself more, then maybe he's not as national a leader as he imagines for now. But ya Mungu ni mengi. Shall see what the future holds.
Thank you so much, Joy. Thank you so much for the great insights. Looking forward to see you some other time. And that's where we get to wind up on the current affairs segment. We're coming after this break on Matters Money Talk.
Asante, Linda.
Asante. And we're all about money matters this morning. We'll be having two sessions with a specialist on different sectors as we discuss how much people are making money or the businesses thriving right now amid COVID-19, and what are some of these businesses that are standing out in terms of how much they are thriving, and what are the secrets to these, and how much can people delve deep into the same. So joining me this morning on the first session is George Mangs, who's the director, Market Cap Trainers, and we want to discuss some bit of cryptocurrency, something that is actually where the world is headed, and some bit of all this talk of Bitcoin and all these businesses that are being conducted online. Very many people getting into that, and I'm sure at some point in time you have been approached by someone who's tried to introduce you to that. You probably were skeptical. If not skeptical, then you are those who were bold enough to take it up. But after taking it up, has it worked for you? If it has not worked, then why? George, good morning.
Good morning, Leila.
You well?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
So what is this thing about cryptocurrency, first of all? Let's pick it up from there so at least we create a base for the people who are watching.
Cryptocurrency is basically just digital money that you can look at more or less like our normal M-Pesa, but look at M-Pesa without borders.
Yeah.
So you can transact with someone in the US, someone in China, and it takes a very short period of time for the transaction as compared to the mainstream banking transactions. And it's very, very, very cheap as compared to the normal transactions across the borders.
Technically, where the world is headed, obviously, as it sounds.
Absolutely, yes.
In totality. A good move in comparison to what we have currently?
I believe, yeah. The good thing about cryptocurrency, all the transactions are public. They're held in the public transaction chain that we call the blockchain. So they're very easily traceable. You can literally see the movement of Bitcoin from one wallet to another, how much the addresses that it was transferred from and where it's heading. And at the same time, you cannot reproduce more Bitcoin. You see, like what we have currently in the economy, like there is, for instance, there's a lot of money printing going on, and this is going to cause lots of inflation. We don't have such risks when it comes to cryptocurrencies. And I think that's why the future is headed there.
All right. Is this a good investment, so to speak, now that you mentioned the likes of Bitcoin?
I've personally been investing in cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin, since 2016. And yeah, I can't really complain. And I can see the adoption that's happening globally. People are really coming up to it. Initially, most people didn't really understand how it works, but the trainings that we're carrying out, and mostly people reading it up on the internet and bringing the application scope into their lives and daily transactions, I think the uptake is really good. We need to do more to increase the awareness, but as now I can say that it's really working well for those who understand it.
All right, and speaking of awareness, that's where we want to pick it up from, because this morning we're all about understanding how much of awareness needs to be done. What is this that you feel has not reached to the people so that they can get to embrace this?
Well, the challenges that we do face currently, I'll be very honest, is what I can call knowledge or informational asymmetry. The few people that do know, as you understand, we do have scams in cryptocurrency. And these are based on the fact that most people know that there's a lot of money being made in cryptocurrencies. And so people try to use this as a carrot that they dangle to those who don't really understand how cryptocurrency works, but they want to make money. So we have all these multi-level marketing networks that promise you, 20% returns every month, 100% returns in 2 months, etc. So we're trying I'm a member of the Blockchain Association of Kenya. So we're coming up with a curriculum, some sort of training program to just create awareness about how cryptocurrencies work in general. I also personally do carry out trainings for people who want to invest in cryptocurrencies. The way cryptocurrencies work is that if you don't have what we call a private key for your wallet or for your account, you don't really own any cryptocurrency. And so if someone's coming to you telling you to give them money so that you can buy some package or something of the sort, that's most likely a scam. So just trying to demystify this kind of mysteries about cryptocurrencies, training people how can they invest personally without necessarily having to go through that. But it's the same way people do for the stock market. And I believe in a few months' time, we should have more awareness in Kenya, but we're targeting more or less the entire East Africa region and Africa as a whole, as a blockchain association.
You talk about a scam, and one would want to know then, if today I want to venture into this, what is the process? I mean, walk us through what would be the general and the basic process of this, because I'll tell you for free, apart from Bitcoin, which was the first one, and in a way was a bit successful. Very many people have successful stories about this. There are very many others that are coming on board. And true to it, first instances, you find that there are people who've successfully managed to make money, but later on, you realize that it's more or less like a scam. So walk us through the basic one that one would, first of all, get into and know that this is not a scam.
All right, people really try to complicate the issue with cryptocurrency so much. What I would say, if you can open a Gmail account, trust me, you can also open a cryptocurrency account. Locally, I personally do use localbitcoins.com. This is a global website for trading in Bitcoins. Wherever you are, you can buy, you can sell, whether you are in Kenya, Uganda, Somalia. It translates basically from Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency that you're dealing in into your local currency. And if you need to move now a little step further, we have the normal exchanges like Binance, Bitfinex, Hotbit. So the first step is to just know how to buy Bitcoin. Once you do know how to do that, and you can do it in your local currency. In Kenya, we do buy Bitcoin via M-Pesa, and it's very easy. So the first training that people need to understand is that it's not complicated, and it's very real. It's happening. The fear that people have about the risks, well, the risks are still there, but they're not really as bad and scamish as people try to make them sound. But the main thing that people need to understand is that if you're going to invest in cryptocurrency, don't invest through anyone. And most of all, where you have to buy packages. If you want to invest in cryptocurrency, either get the right training and approach it from a knowledge perspective. That way you'll be doing something that you really understand. But if you're going to do it just because you want to make money, chances are that you're going to do something wrong and you lose money in the end.
All right. How different is this from Forex trading? Because one would look at it as, easy Forex trading.
Well, when it comes to trading cryptocurrencies, the basics are basically the same, whether it's Forex or it's stock market. I mean, we use the same graphs to interpret the same charts to focus on the trends and analyze where it's going to go up or down. But the difference with Bitcoin and generally cryptocurrencies, they're extremely volatile. Volatile in the fact that today it's really up, tomorrow it's extremely down. And if you come in without the knowledge of how it works and you put your lump sum today, tomorrow it could be down, it could be up. If you don't really have the stomach to take that, then you rather stay away. What happens with Forex is that, well, I think currently the biggest number of scams you have in Kenya are Forex based. Everyone is somehow doing Forex and giving people these returns, but you give them your money and you never see it again. With cryptocurrencies, what we try to do is to make sure that someone understands that the volatility can really be taken care of by periodic investments. If, say, I have 100,000 shillings and I want to invest in Bitcoin, I wouldn't really come and do it in Bitcoin once. I would maybe split it in 20,000, 20,000, 30,000 over a period of time, maybe per week or a fortnight. And then that takes care of the volatility. If tomorrow it's going to go up, I'll buy a little bit less. If it's going to go down, I'll buy a little bit more. But over a period of time, my average is going to be quite sustainable. And in the long term, I'm going to see some good returns. The reason Forex is really popular is because people look at it as a very short-term medium of making a lot of money. And in most cases, that never happens.
All right. So in this case, how do you calculate your benefits? And are there losses anyway?
Well, I personally do invest in cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, to be specific, on a long-term perspective. Are there losses? Yeah, there are some losses, especially if you're doing it short-term. I've been investing in cryptocurrencies since 2016, thereabouts. By then, Bitcoin was around $600 each. Currently, as we speak, Bitcoin is around $10,900. And so you can see if you're doing it long term, there's really, really a lot of returns. Okay, just a disclaimer. I wish I had bought quite a huge chunk when it was at $600, but you can never really know these things. And the volatility is that around early 2018, we had Bitcoin going for almost $20,000. Then the correction happened up to around $2,000, $3,000 sometime last year. And then it began its ascending currently to where it is now. So that's why I say if you're doing this long term, you tend to average down over time, but at the same time, you should really understand the trend so that when it's at the peak, you sell. And then when it's at the bottom, you can still buy again and start building your portfolio.
All right, like you say, people get into it and they want to quickly invest and disappear. This is based on the fears that come along with the fact that, well, maybe when you hold right there long term, eventually you'll end up losing everything that you probably have raised up until that point. So how do you get to quell the fears and get the confidence to have a long-term investment?
The best way to quell these fears is to, first of all, really understand the applications of the blockchain technology and how Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general came into existence. Most of this came in after the 2008 financial crash.
Yeah.
And it happened because of the lots of money printing that caused inflation, and through most investors are out of shape because they didn't see really that this was going to happen. And if you look at what's happening, especially now in the current COVID pandemic, there's a lot of printing money that's going on by most central banks. The US Fed is really doing their bit of money printing and trying to bail out businesses. So what happens in the long term is that you have a lot of money in circulation as opposed to the services and goods that are being rendered. So this causes lots of inflation. Cryptocurrencies came in to solve this problem because you cannot print what is not existing. Like in Bitcoin, we only know at any given time we're only going to have 21 million Bitcoins. That's never going to change. So as the demand goes up, so does the value of Bitcoin. And as you can see, currently global adoption is around 5%. If this goes to maybe, say, 10%, we're going to have a lot of demand coming in for cryptocurrencies, but then the supply is fixed. And that's the strength the cryptocurrencies have over the normal currencies, what we call the fiat. So when you understand it from that angle, you do understand the decentralization factor of the cryptocurrencies, the strength. And with time, as demand rises due to public awareness and global adoption, the value of the cryptocurrency is eventually going to be up. Everybody who doesn't understand cryptocurrencies do refer to it as a scam. But if you look at the underlying technology of the blockchain, you really get to understand the strengths that they have.
And speaking of a scam, what are the most notable ones that we can speak of today, now that you've been in the game for the longest of time and you can easily advise someone?
I know there are guys who are going to kill me for this, my really good friends, but I can say off the top of my head, back in 2017, I think when Bitcoin was really at the peak, we had BitClub network. And if you do look at the business model, you could easily see that it's a scam. I mean, this is just someone's business trying to make money from innocent guys who don't understand how it works. Actually, the guy, the owner of the scam, was arrested, was it last month in Indonesia, by the US government over, I think, $722 million they had scammed out of people. And that includes so many Kenyans who lost millions. Currently, we have Bitcoin Loop, and even what they're doing, they'll take a photo of someone, say Chris Kirubi. They put on a website and say that he's endorsed it, or someone like Chandaria, or, well, luckily they'll never put my photo. The thing is, they use these big guys to confuse the public generally, and then they tell you, you'll get these specific returns over a month or 2 months or so. But the thing about cryptocurrencies, the volatility doesn't guarantee any fixed returns over any period of time. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. So unless someone has a stash somewhere that they're going to pay you when it goes down, it's obviously a scam. And in most cases, no one has a stash to give the public. I usually challenge guys who invest in such investments that promise fixed returns. Like, if whoever is promoting it knows that it's that profitable, why can they take a loan from the bank and invest in it? Why do they come to strangers to look for cash, for capital? So that's normally the challenge. And then they do target mostly people who don't understand how it works, but they really want to make a lot of money. And sadly, people fall for it all the time.
I hope you've heard that wherever you're watching from. I think was almost falling a victim of this at some point in time. So every other time I'm discussing this, I hold it with high regard, and I'm sure very many of you can relate. And speaking of which, now that we're saying the world is headed to that direction of cryptocurrency, we'll probably see a merger of banks, and systems merging up and working the cryptocurrency way. Do you foresee a situation where governments will equally adopt the likes of, Bitcoin and this, or the legit ones?
What I can say is the thing about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency generally is that it's a decentralized kind of currency that runs on a very independent platform. So there is totally no regulation over it. But what I think Bitcoin or generally cryptocurrency will now replace the normal currencies that we have. At best, they'll work, like hand in hand. Because at the end of the day, even if you have Bitcoin, for you to transact the normal guy, you still need to convert it, say, into shillings. And that's how, at Market Cap Trainers, we actually do help. If you have Bitcoin and you want to convert it into Kenya shillings, we do help you transfer it into M-Pesa within 5 or 10 minutes. And governments are just coy about this, it's central banks all over the world, because you cannot basically control something that you don't have. You cannot regulate something that you don't have control over. And as time goes, I think they'll have to do what we call KYC.
Yeah.
Now, KYC is just basically knowing who owns this address, so that it's very easy for them to trace. Currently, what we had recently, we had some hacks on Twitter accounts of the big guys, the likes of Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and stuff. And the guys who hacked those accounts were claiming ransom in Bitcoin. Now, this means that if the government wants to get serious with that, they'll have the details about whoever owns the addresses, so that if such a thing happens, you can easily locate them. Currently, we don't have that. Because what's happening, Bitcoin is still going to be here, cryptocurrency will be here, but the governments are just going to need to be more serious about this, and rather than block it because they can't, they'll just have to embrace a way of regulating it. But currently, we don't have. In future, I foresee it happening.
All right, and speaking of which, when we look at this at the economic perspective, if fully adopted, then what would it mean in terms of, advancing the economic activities across the globe?
Well, if you look at it from an economic perspective, especially for business, personally, I'll give you my personal experience. I do invest for guys, and most of them are not even in this country. I do invest for people, especially in the stock market and still in cryptocurrencies. These people, rather than send me money, if you're, say, Australia, you have Australian dollars, I cannot use Australian dollars in Kenya. So what do? You send me in Bitcoin. If you're going to send me 10,000, I'll look up the value of 10,000 in cryptocurrency, and I'll tell you it's maybe 0.1 Bitcoin. So you just send the Bitcoin in my wallet. It's going to take you, 3 minutes. And so you understand, so cryptocurrencies are coming in to solve these cross-border transactions in a very simple, efficient, and cheap way. Yeah. So in future, as we look at, most business look at cutting down on costs, especially transaction costs, they'll have to look at this cryptocurrency factor. Well, the volatility notwithstanding, because you can still convert your local currency once you receive it. It's going to be the way to go. So when it comes to businesses, it's just that people don't really understand currently the applications and the risks involved. But I think it's going to be a great solution for the future.
All right, and speaking of which, someone sent a message. They are asking, how do I determine my basis in virtual currency if I purchased with real money?
Just come again? What's the question?
He's asking, how do I determine my basis in virtual currency if I purchased with real money?
Well, first of all, if you look at cryptocurrencies, we have over 1,000 of them currently.
Yeah.
But the top ones, of course, you have Bitcoin, you have Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, Ripple, Monero, and such. So if you're going to purchase it with real money, first of all, you need to get an account. And like I said, it's just simple, like opening a Gmail account or a Yahoo. I don't know if Yahoo still exists, but let's say Gmail. So once you open your account, then you basically have a wallet on the blockchain. And from there, it's very easy. We actually, maybe you can get them my contacts. They can get to me privately. But the challenge is maybe just ensuring the security of your wallet, since it's going to be an online wallet and hackers can easily access it. So there are some steps that you have to take before you start purchasing any sort of cryptocurrency. But what matters if you're starting out investing in cryptocurrency is you need to look at the feasibility, basically the strength of the cryptocurrency they're investing in, see its future long-term potential. Like we normally do in stocks, say if I'm going to buy Safaricom shares, I'll look at the company and say maybe Safaricom in future is going to be 40 shillings. Currently it's trading at 30, so that gives me an upside of 10 shillings. Same thing with cryptocurrencies. You look at it currently, the adoption is 5% and it's maybe 100,000 shillings. Where if what's going to happen in 10 years, probably it's going to be 1 million. So I really have a huge legroom for growth in my investment. But for more detailed details on that, maybe we can have a different session for that.
All right. And this would be a question, now that we're saying very many of them are cropping up, and you speak highly of a Bitcoin. What do you suppose will be the next big one?
I do use Bitcoin because we call it the big dog. That's the pioneer cryptocurrency. But of course, we do have, like I mentioned, the likes of Ethereum. We have exchange coins like Binance Coin, KuCoin. But what you need to understand when it comes to cryptocurrency is that just like we have in any economy, we do have sectors. We have agricultural, say, for instance, banking, insurance. Same thing we do have in cryptocurrencies. So you'll see that we have in cryptocurrency, we have currencies that are specific for transfer of money. You want to move money between banks and banks, you're going to use Ripple. You want to transfer money between borders, you most likely going to use Bitcoin. And then there's also Litecoin. Or you want to use money anonymously, you have Monero. And then you also have the big ones under the sector of smart contract execution. That's where you meet Ethereum. You have Cardano. You have, what is this, EOS, for instance. So there's so many of them, be 1,000. Each one has its own specific applications, and they have their own competition circles. So you cannot say that Ethereum is competing with Bitcoin because those are like oranges and apples. They're in very different sectors.
A concern right here being raised. They say now that the price of one coin is about 1.179 million Kenyan shillings. How much would one need to join this bandwagon if they do not have a coin of that value? Or they do not have that value or that amount of money?
Good question. And I think that's the question that mostly throws most people off guard and gives scammers a chance to convince you that it's so expensive, you cannot afford it. You have to give me your money, then I'll trim your money with other people's money so that we buy a big one. But the reality is, Bitcoin is currently $10,900. There's something around 1.1 something in Kenya shillings. But you don't need to have all this money to buy. Actually, currently in Kenya, you can buy Bitcoin from as low as 100 shillings.
Yeah.
And if I can even just check on the local market, you can actually, as you speak now, the minimum that you can buy is 1,000 shillings. So you'll buy 0.001 of a Bitcoin, and that's enough to start off for you. And then over time you can build. You can still come back tomorrow. You can come back in the evening and again buy maybe 500 shillings. You don't need the whole 1.2 million or 1.1 million to buy. You don't need to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can just.
But the more you put, the likelihoods of you getting more, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, so the more the merrier, they say.
Yes.
All right. I would have wanted to know more about taxing and how do you get to, declare this and all that. But anyway, because time is not on our side, briefly as you wind up, maybe you can tell us something about how this gets to be taxed.
How this gets to
be taxed.
Yes. What's the word? Please come.
Tax. In terms of taxes.
Oh, tax.
This, yes.
Yeah. Right. Like I said, the government Fortunately for us, they don't have any tax mechanisms in place unless you declare. But as you know, cryptocurrency is currently not identified by the government as some form of investment or transaction. So what happens is that whatever you do, unless you declare it under your normal investments, the government doesn't have any idea about it. So we're kind of having some reprieve on that. But as they understand how the blockchain works and get deep into it, I'm sure they'll be coming for most of us and we'll have to declare tax. But as of now, we don't have any such system in place.
All right, okay. And in 30 seconds, as we wind up, one person is asking this, in this case, must you sell a coin for you to gain profits? Or also it's based on the kinds of markets and the shooting up of, the values?
A good question. Just like for all investments, if you invest in cryptocurrencies, you want to make money. I mean, you want to liquidate and get money back into your pocket. Yeah. You're going to have to sell. So if say you buy currently it's 1.265 M, and maybe after 1 week it's probably 1.6 M, and you see the difference, you don't need to sell everything. Maybe you have a need for say 100,000 shillings. You can just sell an equivalent of 100,000. And still retain the remaining bits on the wallet on the internet.
All right, thank you so much, George Manx, Director Market Cap Trainers. It was great having you. I'm sure we've picked so much so that will be of help to us. In case we'll have more questions, we'll always seek your services. That's where we get to wind up on this particular session as we cross over to a different session altogether where we discuss online marketing or online business at this time of COVID-19.
Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time of COVID-19, you must have had very many people telling you, you know what, you need not to worry if you've lost your job. You need not to worry if you're not in the office. I mean, there are lots and vast opportunities online. So very many people have ventured into online business. Probably one of the businesses that has been booming at this particular time. So we need to understand why, how, and whether indeed there's still space. Looks like the cake is quite huge for everyone. So you can go out there and get a piece, but you do not just go there blindly. That's why this morning we're having this conversation of thriving in business online and what is so special about that. And DJ Kuman, that is the Chief Business Development Officer, that is Poor Internet, is going to join me so they can take us through what it is that they're doing special in their company and what it is that is of a space in terms of, you know, people getting out and venturing into online business. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Lina. Thank you for having us.
Thank you too. So thank you so much for, you know, finding time for us this morning. And many people have directed their businesses to the digital platform. One would tell you that we all had a physical, a place where people would come and buy. But right now, we do deliveries and we advertise our stuff online and everything. Everyone is fighting for space online. Why?
Well, I mean, given the current circumstances where the government is advising people to practice social distancing and stay as home as much as possible, it's a natural movement that people actually move towards an online space, whether it's for working, whether it's for education. So we have seen as a business a pent-up demand, so an increased number of people asking for online connectivity in order to be able to continue their work and live and educate their offspring from home.
All right. During this time of the pandemic, now that you rightfully put, yes, of course, there are restrictions that, you know, reduce us to this particular level. But it looks like it's one of the businesses that is booming, one of the businesses that has not suffered loss, and correct me if I'm wrong, at this time of the pandemic. Why is this so special? Why is it different from the others?
I think so. What you see is that, say, traditional telecommunications. So you're talking about mobile network operators and the traditional ISPs, the internet service providers, the likes of Safaricom, Home Fiber, Zuku, and JTL. They tend to focus on the middle income and high income areas. Where there is enough revenue density, where there's enough people that can actually afford a home internet connection. And we tend to go into places where these operators traditionally do not go. So we offer our services in marginalized communities, such as urban slums and rural settings. So we go effectively where the others don't go, and we use a technology that is slightly different from what, for instance, Safaricom and Zuku are using. So we use fixed wireless access to the home. So our last mile, as it is called in the industry, is a wireless connection. It's not the same as your mobile, because we offer an unlimited service. So you have unlimited internet to your home with your own private Wi-Fi signal. And as a result, because we focus on the areas that the others are not focusing on, it creates a competitive advantage, as you can imagine.
All right, so there's a lot of struggles in terms of that, and you know, embracing internet is one thing that has been advised, you know, across the board. So when you look at scenarios where we're having all these struggles and the competitive market, how are you struggling towards ensuring that, you know, it's an easier ground for the people who are struggling with life? You know, talk of the people who are in the slums that still equally need access to the likes of internet so they can be able to conduct, you know, businesses online.
Yeah, I hear you, and it's one of our constant considerations. See how we can actually create more efficiency throughout the entire value chain to be able to provide our services at the most affordable rates, because we do understand that our customers are in these marginalized communities, and their disposable income may not be as big as you would have in the middle income areas. So what we have done is we've developed a technology stack from the ground up in order to be able to provide our service at a very affordable rate, in order to be able to capture as much market share in those areas as possible. What we do see, however, that although there is increased demand because of the current situation with COVID-19, with a lot of people still losing their jobs, is that there is also an increased economic hardship. So we do understand that it's not easy for say, Kenyans in general to deal with the situation. And as a result, what we've also seen is that our network has seen over the past couple of months a 25% increase in network utilization. So that has caused us to actually to double down on doing some network upgrades to be able to continue to provide our service to our customers. And I would like to extend a warm thanks to our entire team for making this all happen and working tirelessly, but also for our customers bearing with us during these situations.
All right, DJ. One would want to say that it's okay. With the availability of all these platforms, it will be pointless if this would not be helpful to the people. So one would want to ask, how then do they get to start a business online when they are at home? How can they make money online when they are at home so that they can easily get into understanding some of these services that are provided for them to take advantage of?
Yeah, there are different opportunities. Of course, the previous guest that you had talked about Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. That is an opportunity for young, well-educated people. There is the opportunity to write papers for students in the West, which is a very common way to get an online job. But in addition to that, there are companies, for instance, the likes of DDD, Sama Source, and Cloud Factory that provide digital jobs. And these are perfect opportunities for people to hop on the online job space and make an income with their internet connection.
All right, what are some of the businesses that you notably have seen thriving online at this particular time of the pandemic?
Well, what we see is that say the digital education space is getting more and more crowded and getting an increased traction. What we also see is that e-commerce has picked up, and of course the various video streaming solutions, whether it's YouTube, Netflix, but also the ones that are, say, of slightly more questionable nature from a legitimacy perspective.
All right, well, a secret to thriving, because that's very much important. One would tell you that the people, and I think that is very common right here in the country, you find that very many people are out there trying to create content, showcase that on YouTube and make money out of it. What is the secret to, standing out? What is the secret to ensuring that you get returns out of anything that you put online, out of the efforts that you put online, out of the content that you sell online?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether I'm the appropriate person to ask that one, how one becomes an influencer on YouTube and make money.
Not necessarily YouTube, that's why I said on a wider scope, we take a look at just technically what it is that you put in terms of business there, and for you to get to realize the benefits of it at the end of the day.
It's a good question, and it doesn't have a single straight answer, because I think what you need to acknowledge is that you have your own set of skills, and you know your audience best, and you need to captivate your audience by using those skills, and then actually see how you can merge both the offline and the online experience in the same. I don't think online in itself is a solution to anything. I think the perfect marriage between online and offline is where you can actually make a difference. And another element that I think is actually quite crucial, irrespective of what business that you're in, is actually providing excellent customer service throughout the value chain, because that's where you will actually manage to maintain and keep customers, win new customers by providing an excellent customer service.
While you venture into online business, when there are people who've just decided, okay, from traditional way of business, crossing over to internet and close and shut the traditional way, what are the dangers of that? Or what is the best way to transition from the physical aspect of business, traditional aspect of business, into online business or e-commerce in totality?
So one risk is that you actually you jump the gun and you think that all of your customers that you found offline will also be available online. And another one is that you actually you calculate yourself to become a millionaire overnight, because all of a sudden you no longer have to pay a rent for a retail space. You don't have to you no longer have to spend all that money on all these physical elements, whereas even in an online situation, you still may need to have a fulfillment with say motorbikes or similar type of delivery mechanisms. So it's crucial that you understand that shifting from offline to online does not solve all your problems. You still need to make sure that, say, you keep all your customer touch points as robust as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So these are crucial elements when you shift or when you add an online channel.
Mm-hmm. All right, and
another one to take into consideration is the way that your customers prefer to communicate, because most Kenyans will have been used to call customer service using a normal phone line, their mobile phone line, and they're used to calling another mobile number because there is the perception that that is cheaper than calling a fixed line starting with 020, for instance. So if you don't offer these services, it will require your customer base to actually go through an education curve to understand that there are other or better or cheaper ways to reach out to you. Another misconception is that online solves all the customer contact points instantaneously. I mean, your customers nowadays expect immediate responses, so you need to be equipped to be able to answer all those calls or questions in a very short time frame.
One, creating your business base online is introducing, your business to a larger scope, which is a good thing, but equally introducing it to more dangers, posing it to more risks and all that. So how then does one work out things to ensure that, yes, their business is protected, from all these dangers and the risks that are out there?
There are, whether you're, say, offline or online, there are risks to your business or to an individual, whether it's, as the other guest mentioned, whether it's the risk of scams or cyber attacks, etc. Your shop can be robbed. Your virtual shop can also be robbed to some extent. So practice the same type of common sense and install the same kind of security levels that you would do in an offline situation. Also extend those measures in an online situation, and whether that's, say, virus scans on your computer, hosting your solution, your shop, your e-commerce solution in a secure environment. There are plenty of reliable suppliers of the different protection elements in the digital space to assist you with that.
It is rather a competitive space, and I think you acknowledge that also by mentioning some of the competitors of your company, that is Pora Internet. How does one stay afloat? How do you manage, to stand out and, to prove a point or even to beat the rest in such a competitive platform?
I can't speak for my competitors, of course, but what we do predominantly is we go where the others don't. So we go in a space where the traditional internet service providers see no business case, and through cost leadership, we manage to provide a very affordable service. So we have prices as a differentiator, and we provide customer care from 6 in the morning till midnight. So actually, most of the time when our customers are away.
There could be virtual provision of customer care or online provision of customer care, but at some point in time, I would assume that you probably have workers who would have to go and do connections down and meet people and everything. At this time of COVID-19, how are you managing that? How are you ensuring that they are protected as you also protect the people that they go to set up connections for?
Yeah, so when the first case was announced in Kenya, so we're talking 12th of March, we immediately took action and we developed protocols and policies and procedures and work instructions for all of our staff, whether they're the people in the office as well as the people working in the field, such as the technicians that you just mentioned. So we provided them with the relevant equipment, whether it's gloves, masks, sanitizer, etc., but also with the proper training and instructions on the same. And throughout the entire period, whenever government mentioned that measures had to be more strict, we were following those to the letter and over and above that letter to make sure that our staff and our customers are protected to the extent possible, because without those people, there is no POA Internet. Without staff and customers, there is no POA Internet.
All right, give us your parting shots on how best one can thrive at this time of COVID-19 and even in future, and ensure that you keep your businesses afloat, because that's the talk as it stands today, that yes, every other business has been affected, but then how do we get to bounce back? Such has also been witnessed in the online industry. If it's a boom, then again, when people go back to normalcy, the likelihood that the sales will go low. So how will there be managing of the same to ensure that there's proper stay afloat?
Yeah, so we're still a small startup, so we need to be very frugal with the money that we have, because we're not throwing up big wads of cash like other people are doing. So we need to be extremely frugal. So cash is still king for that matter. At the same time, what we have found is that by doing proper scenario planning, where you have a best case and most likely case and a worst case scenario, and make sure that you have trigger points along the line where you can actually take corrective action, because although, say, all the big boys, McKinsey and Ernst & Young, etc., are advising that as soon as disaster strikes, you need to cut deep and cut fast, so trim the fat and actually cut through meat as well. We have decided, because we also want to make sure that we are able to bounce back when things take a turn for the better. So we have deliberately not done that. So we have actually taken, say, a scenario planning where we have made very clear control points throughout the chain to make sure that we can take corrective action and measures if and when necessary, and we don't go cutting through the bone on day one, because that would reduce your ability to bounce back. At the same time, you have to remain nimble, in the sense that you need to be able to anticipate on changes and to be able to use this time to rethink how you are offering your services and make sure that you rethink in such a way that you can do it more efficiently, more robust. For instance, one of the things that we have done is we shifted towards a new platform to provide inbound customer service using phone calls, and that allows our customer service agents to actually to take calls from the comfort of their own home, therefore reducing their exposure to the pandemic as such.
And let me ask this, I'd say let's take us back to where we probably would have started from. And setting up a business online, people just think it's a random thing where you sleep and wake up and say, all right, there's this, then I can just go online and advertise on the social media platforms and just ensure that I take my business there. I mean, what are the general steps to this? What are the repercussions of just getting into this without knowing what it is that you're venturing into? What are some of the lessons to pick before you decide that officially my business is online, in terms of registrations, or does this differ, with different countries and platforms?
Yeah, let me use an example. For instance, I say an online business that is called dropship. So you have the likes of, for instance, AliExpress or Alibaba, where you start advertising goods that are not your goods, but you believe that you're your captive audience, so that people that listen to you and that check your blog, or for instance, are interested in. And then you buy them cheap in, for instance, China. You don't keep any stock, because stock keeping costs money, and as soon as someone makes an order, you place the order with a third party and you have it delivered directly from that third party to your end customer. Now, sounds very easy and straightforward and very low risk. The risk, however, is that if you want to make a larger margin, you need to commit to a larger volume, for instance, with your supplier. And also, you don't control the part of the value chain where there is the delivery. So imagine that your customer pays you, you pay the third party, and the third party then can't deliver, or has production delays, or the shipment gets lost whilst being shipped from China to Kenya. These are all risks that you need to factor in, and these risks can actually translate into money, because you will have received the money from your customer. If you have 3 or 4 angry customers, they can ruin your reputation online, and therefore your business is down to the ground again.
All right. Thank you so much, DJ Kuman, Chief Business Development Officer for Internet, for the great insights. As we get to wind up in 30 seconds or so, what would be your advice for people who are venturing in business right now online, or the ones that would want to venture into the same?
I would strongly advise to use online to educate yourself about online businesses. There's plenty of resources out there that can warn you for what to take care of, what to consider, and how to start your business. And at the same time, keep it close to yourself. Make sure that it is something that you like what you're doing, because just being in it for the money will represent itself in the service that you're going to be providing. So if you do, Confucius said, if you do something that you love, you never have to work a day in your life anymore. And I think the guy was right.
Once again, thank you so much, and thank you so much to you back at home or wherever you're watching us from, for keeping us company right from 6 a.m. up until now. It was great having you, and I look forward to see you again tomorrow with an all different, discussion that will be of importance to you. See you again tomorrow. My name is Linda Alela. That's the end of Morning Cafe.
World of M-Truck Solutions, your trusted provider for bulk SMSs. We also offer